Hey guys, Yips here coming with another video, and this one is going to be about Destro on the PTR and talking about why the things that really limit Destro design space on live are going away and how Destro is going to be improving in 7.2.5 patch and how you guys can be looking forward to that, okay? So, currently on live, Destro Warlock has two major design limiting things that are getting totally reworked, and I think it's going to make Destro play a lot smoother. So the first one being the fact that on live right now, when you're playing a Destro Warlock, you feel like you have to spam Chaos Bolt a lot. You have so much shard gen when you have, a bunch of immolates out, or even just one immolate, and you have a bunch of the, immolate crit traits. You have a lot of crit to begin with, and haste, and your immolate is just ticking like crazy and generating you all of these shards on top of your conflagrates that give you shards. You're just going to feel like you have way too many shards to spend, and you're just constantly just pressing Chaos Bolt. Now, why this is limiting in design is because it doesn't let Chaos Bolt hit as hard as it should. Because if a class has an ability that they can just spam, obviously it can't be hitting for as high numbers because it's a spammable ability. And Chaos Bolt basically on live, on 2 or more targets, especially if you have Ferritory, is a spammable ability. So we'll talk a little bit about how they remedied this. The other design limiting factor that Destro has always had that is actually going away is the Havoc. So Destro has always had this ability called Havoc, which allows you to cleave. So when you mark a target with Havoc, it just duplicates all of your abilities. So if you guys see here, if I was to set this guy on focus and I was to Havoc him and start using abilities, you see it'll be copied to him. So I'm literally doing double the damage right now that I normally would be doing because I'm attacking 2 targets here, okay? See, all my Chaos Bolts are being doubled, and then when it goes away, you go back to hitting your single target, and you have to wait for it to come back off cooldown. So, why is this ability design limiting? Well, on live, you're able to talent into Bane of Havoc, or Wreak Havoc, sorry, and what this does is it reduces the cooldown on it, and on live, the cooldown goes to 0, so you can have permanent uptime on Wreak Havoc. Now, is that a good thing? No, that's not really a good thing. The reason that's not a good thing is because it doesn't allow Destro to have good single target, okay? And Destro's single target is something that they're currently extremely lacking on. I don't know if you guys play Mythic Plus at all, but whenever you feel like you get onto that one mob, or even in a raid situation where the fight is extremely long because you don't have a lot of cooldowns, obviously you burst very high in the opener, but after that your sustain goes way down as a Destro lock. They kind of can't remedy this because of Havoc, right? Havoc's just too strong. So what have they done to fix both of these issues that Warlock has on live for destruction? Well, they've made soul shards a lot more valuable and have a lot longer to get. So for example, you now have soul fragments. So for example, Immolate, it has a chance to generate 1 soul shard fragment, and critical strikes have an additional chance to generate soul shard fragments. So it's a much more reliable system to generate shards now because immolate ticks are always going to generate these fragments, and crit just has a chance to double it. And then your conflag generates 5 soul shard fragments. So when you press, conflag, it will generate you a half a bubble. Each bubble is 10. And so 2 conflags will generate you 1 soul shard, and consequently immolate ticks will also eventually generate you soul shards. And they've also, they've nerfed Soul Conduit because of this. Every shard you spend has a 15% chance to be refunded. Obviously, because shards are more valuable now, obviously, Conflagrate generates you half the amount as before. You can't have these crazy refund mechanics because they just be refunding more stuff. Similarly, Ferritory of Souls was nerfed. Also, your Snatcher ability was nerfed, but they're not really nerfed because shards are more valuable now. Therefore, they have to be tuned down, okay? So, just to let you guys know, it's harder to get soul shards now, but because it's harder to get soul shards, your abilities hit much harder. So, for example, now, on the PTR, your Chaos Bolts are just hitting for crazy numbers. They're hitting way harder than they do on live, and same thing with Rain of Fire. So I just press Rain of Fire on 4 mobs so we can see what kind of damage it's going to do. You see it's critting for around 200k. I pressed that ability once, and it's already, on 4 targets, it was able to do 3.45 million, which is quite good, right? That's quite a high amount of DPS, just for pressing an ability 1 time. So, really, really nice stuff that Blizzard has come out with Destro. If you take a look at my Chaos Bolt numbers, if I just, let me just dot up these mobs really quick and cast Chaos Bolt a few times, I can show you guys the kind of numbers Destro's putting out with Chaos Bolts. Just get my shards up here. So you can see it is a lot harder to generate shards. So if I was just, cast my Wreak Havoc and then just spam Chaos Bolt for a little bit here, you can guys see the sort of numbers we're going to be getting. compared to on live. So we see my Chaos Bolts, the minimum hit is 1.63 million, maximum hit is 1.8 million, and I'm not even pressing any cooldowns, right? Like, I'm just casting my Chaos Bolts. Their maximum now is 1.9 million. I don't even have Soul Harvest up or anything like that, which is quite a lot higher on live. Right now on live, when you Chaos Bolt with Soul Harvest, these are the numbers you can be expecting. On live, my minimum hit of Chaos Bolt is around 1 million, but the damage has been increased by, at least 50%, which is quite nice. So yes, it's harder to generate Soul Shards, but now, since you aren't going to be spamming Chaos Bolt, the damage of Chaos Bolt is actually going to be a lot higher, which is very nice, okay? So now you feel like, you can save shards, and when Lashers come out, for example, on Botanist, you can actually cast a Chaos Bolt, and you might only need to cast one, and it will just obliterate the thing, into a million pieces, which is quite nice. The other thing that, having Havoc is Destro single target has actually gone up a lot on PTR. It's quite competitive now with other classes. I don't think it's still going to be quite as strong, but you're not going to feel like you're on the bottom of the barrel. So I'm going to show you guys a little bit of Destro single target over here in a second, and just show you the kind of numbers that Destro is currently doing. So you're going to be playing with Eradication on single target. Eradication is quite nice. Chaos Bolt increases the damage you deal to the target by 15% for 7 seconds. So obviously you're going to want to save your shards and just be Chaos Bolting into the Eradication buff, just to increase all of that damage. Obviously a really good legendary is going to be Feretory of Souls, and the Shoulders I don't have either on live, so I'm not going to be using them here in this, situation, but I will be changing just to Pride as here, just because these are my 2 DPS Destro legendaries. So I'm going to show you guys the kind of single target Destro can do now. It's quite a lot higher than it is on live. I will be popping my cooldowns in the opener, which will allow me to do slightly more burst than normal, but overall the Destro single target damage has gone quite up because of the Havoc nerf. Havoc now has a cooldown of 45 seconds instead of 20. So let me show you guys this real quick. So just going to go with the regular rotation for Destro in the opener, just casting all of my cooldowns out there, saving my shards here, and I'm going to get that Eradication buff up now. Just maintain your Eradication buff the best that you can. It's a little bit harder to maintain it because your shard gen is lower, but you can see I'm easily bursting just as high as I do on live. But the thing about this is the sustain afterwards is going to be a lot better. So just try to best to maintain the Eradication buff. You can see it's quite hard to cast out Chaos Bolts, but you generally want to save shards a little bit, so you can chain the Eradication buff for as long as possible. That's the general idea, and you just want to maintain that. And so you'll find when you play on the PTR, your Destro single target, you'll burst really hard, but it will take a lot less time for you to fall off, which is actually really, really nice. Really, really, really nice. So you see here, I'm still over 1 million DPS, far into the pole, and that's really, really good, right? So Blizzard, since they have nerfed the Havoc talent, it really has opened up the design space for them, allowing them to kind of tune Destro single target a little more than they were before, which I think is a really good thing. And I'm really happy they ended up doing that, because now Destro Warlocks, obviously in high-end guilds it wasn't as much of an issue because they're able to multi-class, but a lot of players don't have the ability to play, multiple specs on live, and having it so Destro, can be competitive. If you're in a top 200 guild or top 500 guild or whatever you play in, you'll feel like you'll be able to contribute to your raid, and you won't have to feel like you have to, change up your spec every time, because Destro single target is doing just fine right now. So I hope you guys look forward to that. The Destro single target changes is quite nice. And after a while, I'm still over 900k DPS, which is quite high for next patch. If you guys didn't know, it's quite high for next patch. So really nice stuff, really nice stuff. And if you want to take a look at the damage breakdown of what I was doing, so I was able to maintain 900k for 100 million DPS, which is really good, especially considering I didn't use Lust. My Soul Harvest is coming off cooldown, and I'm not even using DPS legendaries. I'm using Sifus and Pridas, right? So this is also using the new tier, by the way, where Incinerate generates you shards, and Chaos Bolt always benefits from your mastery 100%. So if you look at my damage breakdown, obviously Chaos Bolt's my number one. You see it critting for upwards of 2.5 million, which is crazy high. Obviously that's with the Soul Harvest and Eradication buff. Incinerate dealing a lot more damage. Channel Demon Fire obviously still very strong. Yeah, so all the damage is just very relevant, and it's quite nice. So now let's take a look at the cleave and how Blizzard has changed that. So Wreak Havoc no longer makes your Havoc permanent. I've already talked about this. Wreak Havoc no longer has your Havoc. You can always spread it around, have it on every target that you want to put it on. Now it has a cooldown, so you have to be a little bit more thoughtful about when you're using it, which is fine. I like that. So now with the new Destro playstyle, especially since you guys saw, it's a lot harder for me to generate soul shards than it was on live. You saw that on single target, my shard gem was quite low. But even though the shard gem was low, I was still maintaining a good amount of DPS. You can now save your shards for bursting, which is quite a new thing, right? So imagine that this is the boss. We're going to mark him with a skull. And this X over here is an ad that's going to spawn every 45 seconds. And that's quite common on a boss to have an ad spawn between 40 to every 40 seconds to a minute, right? That's pretty common on a lot of boss fights. So imagine, we're attacking Skull. We're doing our single target. We're going to be playing Wreak Havoc here for the 25-second Havoc cooldown. And, we're just going about our single target. We know the ad's going to be spawning soon. So what we can actually do is, compared to on live, since we're going to be having to spend our shards on single targets, we can actually just save them. And when that ad spawns, we can, put the Havoc on it and just spam our Chaos Bolts out and save those shards. So we literally get double the value out of the Chaos Bolts as best we can here. Going to be spamming out these Chaos Bolts. You can see you spam as much as you can until you're out of shards. And then you just go back about your single target rotation. You're building up shards again. And that's how the Destro cleave is going to work. You're going to be building up your shards until you're at a really reasonably high amount. Wait for your Havoc to come off cooldown. And then when your Havoc comes off cooldown, hopefully you've been able to generate full soul shards, and you can, toss out that Havoc and go about, blasting all of your shards away and doing crazy amounts of cleave DPS. And that's how Destro's going to play on 2-target, right? And any sort of time an ad is going to spawn, you're going to want to make sure that you're generating those shards in order to do that damage. You can see my Chaos Bolt damage is just out of this world, right? I'm not spamming Chaos Bolt, but since it hits so much harder, the uses of it feel much more rewarding. You see it's hitting, 2.3 million, and I didn't even use Soul Harvest. That's crazy high, right? So, all in all, I'm a really big fan of the Destro changes on the PTR with regards to how the quality of life has improved. The single target has gotten a lot better. The cleave feels not more fluent because obviously Havoc has a cooldown, but it's going to require a little bit more thought in terms of, you're going to have to pick and choose your battles of whether you want to, have a 25-second Havoc cooldown or a 45-second Havoc cooldown, depending on the boss fight. Because you could honestly run full single target talent. You could run full single target talents like this, right? And every 45 seconds, you just have this crazy burst window where you think, okay, now I have to save up for when an ad is going to spawn here. Oh, an ad is going to spawn. All right, let's just Havoc it, spam out all of our shards, do crazy amount of cleave DPS, really pad the meters, and then, you can just go back to doing your regular single target rotation and you lose no DPS. And your single target's high, so every single time an ad spawns, it's not like it's going to bring you up to the raid, it's going to put you ahead of the raid group, right? Which is something Destro has really lacked for a long time. Obviously this entire expansion, right? So, I hope you guys are looking forward to the Destro lock changes. The playstyle does feel a lot smoother. If you haven't tested out the PTR, I highly recommend you guys to go test out the PTR. Test out, the cleave mechanics a little bit. Test out, single targeting, and then practicing off cleaving a target when it spawns with the Havoc cooldown being increased. Practice your single target, see if it's any better. I'm sure you guys will be able to do better than I can, but overall, I feel like Blizzard has done a really good job remedying the issues that Destro has on live and making the playstyle feel a lot smoother with increasing the cost of Chaos Bolt, but also increasing the damage and increasing the cooldown of Havoc, but then increasing the single target of Destro locks. So hope you guys like this video. Hope it gives you a little bit of insight towards Destro locks coming next patch, and I'll see you guys next time.